Alright, you studs, so we actually got a little bit more info on Wonderlands and stuff like that with an interview over on GameSpot. So they talked to the senior producer, Kayla Belmore, and they also talked to the creative director and MATREXX for the game. So that's who they interviewed, and they actually were able to give us a little bit, of some breadcrumbs of information and stuff like that. So the first thing that Belmore said in the interview is that one of the aesthetic piece where you can choose what you look like, and then there's the character classes, right? Each character class will have abilities that our fans are accustomed to seeing, and deeper into the game, you'll be able to have the option to multi-class. Now, basically, multi-class is going to come after you beat the main story, but we'll get into that later on into the video, right? Another thing to point out is that some of the plot lines, or rather how you just traverse throughout the game, is going to take a third-person perspective, like an overview, which is pretty interesting. They like to call it the Overworld, Belmore said. So one of the ways you can explore the greater world is through this pulled-back third-person view. We have a fairly linear main plot with tons of side missions. In addition, with some exploration, you can find these 5 optional maps that, if you're a tabletop RPG nerd, they act kind of like modules. So they are connected to the main story, but they're also their own standalone plot lines. You can have dynamic encounters, Cox added, so you can have a little enemy pop up, and then you'll get transported seamlessly into first-person combat where you do a small fight, get your loot, and pop out to a further explore the entire overworld. So the overworld really just acts and flows compared to previous games we've done as the big zone that connects all the experiences. And the customization you choose actually shows up in your bobblehead character as well, which is pretty cool. Out of these, some of these departures from the formula that Gearbox has established with the Borderlands franchise, both Cox and Belmore said fundamentally, Wonderlands plays like a Borderlands game. This is still a looter shooter, though Gearbox has taken steps to improve upon Borderlands formula. Then they added a quote saying, "We wanted to make sure that we embrace the strength of what we do best, and that the looter shooter loop is going to feel very, very familiar to fans of our games. But we, instead of being preoccupied with how many guns are in the game, our focus is more on the diversity of types of fantasy weapons that you can have." So it's really more about the breadth of fantasy gear rather than ensuring a high tick mark on how many guns we have. So they then added, "We still have our procedurally generated loot, so you'll definitely see different parts on the melee weapons and different abilities for spellbooks, but it's more about the new types of gear that you can combine into a meaningful experience so you can play how you want to play. And even some things about the guns have changed," Belmore added. "You'll see different firing mechanics that you can have in previous titles, and the addition of crossbows and magic-based barrels, which are definitely a little bit different from what we've done before." So another thing that they've been really trying to emphasize on this game is the melee of side of things. Borderlands is loot, shoot, not really a whole bunch of melee style stuff like that. They're really trying to put an emphasis on this. And with this quote here, "If you're just out of melee range when you melee attack, you will glide into your enemy," Cox said. "It's like an auto glide, so you can sprint and slide like in Borderlands 3. And then if you melee at the end of your slide within the right distance of enemy, you can continue gliding straight into the enemy and close the distance in a real fun way. It's as satisfying as it looks," Belmore added. So this is very interesting to me. This either means one of two things, from what I'm gathering, is that either you are able to skate or have a bit of a commando style melee system, which I'm down for either way. I'm more leaning that's going to be kind of similar to skating, rather, just a way to perfect your movement. If there's a way where you can perfect your movement in this game to just get around the map further, or just a way to perfect movement in general, I really feel like that's something that less valued in Borderlands games. Like in Destiny, movement is a lot. In New World, movement is a lot, and I feel like just having a way where you can add a bit of movement skill, not a movement skill, but more of a movement skill gap, or a technique that you can learn, that you can improve yourself in, so you can just move better. If that's just what this is going to be, that would be very, very good. Also, something to note is that I'm pretty sure all of the movement features that was in Borderlands 3 are going to be in Wonderlands. So your slide, your mantling, and then your ground slam. Which is pretty cool. Man, I cannot play a game in 2022 that does not have a mantling feature. That shit is criminal. So going back to what we said earlier about your classes and your secondary class, here's a quote. They state that you'll choose your primary class, and then later in the main story, you will be able to slot a secondary class, and then mix and match those two classes in skill trees. That's your character for the campaign," Cox added. but once you beat the plot, you will be able to go back and respec your secondary class. So you still have to stick with your primary class, but you can try a different secondary. So what this means is that your character customization or your class selection is important at the beginning of the game. I know some people were thinking that like you could literally just build any character at any time. You really won't have any reason to. Your decision at the beginning would be irrelevant because you could just change it whenever you wanted to. That's kind of like the, I guess, assumption that a lot of people are coming to. But this quote entirely kills that. Clearly laying out that your primary class is going to be the foundation of your actual of your character. So like for instance in Borderlands, like let's say like if the class like in BL3, I'll just use an example, like if you could like have like start out Flak as your primary and then you could respec a secondary as like your Moes, you could then like combine like Flak with like Amar skills, Zane skills, and Mo skills, because they would be like your secondary, but you have to stick with the Flak because he would be your primary. That's basically what they're saying. Your primary is your foundation and your secondary is what you always have the ability to stir up in and mix and match, which is pretty cool. So this is going to give you a bunch of reasons to run through the game again or make multiple characters. For instance, you could literally run multiple characters, like you could just make certain characters that literally just synergize really well with its secondary class, and you could just have like a super strength oriented style. You could have a super intellect style or super stuff like of that genre, or then you could like mix and match like mage style with, I don't know, strength style. Man, your boy wants to play this game, man. Oh my god. Your ability to shape your character doesn't end there. There's more to do beyond these skills to unlock via your primary and secondary classes, i.e. they're referring to, the skill points that you do, very similar to like the Borderlands skill trees though. However, there's a new thing in this game that they're adding that is called hero points. Cox says, you also have hero points to spend as well, and very classic D&D attributes. And those all speak to different things like a melee attribute or spell attribute or skill down attribute. It's like a character sheet. So in a sense, if you guys ever played D&D, I've played very little, but you'd always have just start off with like a little character sheet, and then as you would progress, you would invest into certain attributes. The very standard like MMO style, more or less a passive. So the things that are, like as you play the game are just gonna be, you're just gonna invest more. They're gonna be better passively. You're not gonna have to like always invest into like a certain skill point and a certain tree to make sure you have that buff active. You feel me? Which is very cool because that adds an entire new level of customization to your character, which I feel like in RPGs, looter shooters, MMOs, anything is generally like one of the most important factors into it being an enjoyable experience to play. Belmore then added, you do have one sort of unique attribute that lives outside of that list of hero stats, and that's luck. Belmore added that it's something you can affect by completing an end-game challenge, and the luckier you are, the more of this challenge you can do. The better your loot chances are at higher rarity. And then obviously, you have to, beat the main campaign to get to endgame, stuff like that. However, this is a nice little, I guess, our first very minuscule, microscopic sneak peek looking at an atomic-sized piece of the endgame of this game, which is obviously very cool. I love, man, looter shooters, RPGs, MMOs, bro. The end game has got to be top notch. I could give a rat's ass how good the story is. I really don't care how good the story is. As long as the end game good, I'm good. That's how I'm rolling. Anyways, guys, that's just a nice little info dump on Wonderlands. Obviously, we're gonna be covering this game like hella crazy when it comes out, and we will be doing like videos on it throughout the months leading up to it and stuff like that. And yeah, guys, if you guys are hyped for this game, let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed the video. My name's Kree, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.